So I've been waiting to upload this, not quite sure even how to upload it or to even talk about it, but not too long ago I had this just huge epiphany, this download of understanding for a moment that, we talk about people getting a download in different ways. With Mandela effects, we talk to people about, seeing things, noticing changes in the world, things like that, and they're agreeing with you, everything's going fine, and then you see that look on their face. Sometimes it happens within minutes, sometimes days or a week, but usually it's pretty quick. Usually it's like right then. They just they receive something that tells them, no, this can't be. I remember this new reality now. I remember how this is currently, and they forget what they were agreeing with. It's very strange, and we have a hard time accepting how anybody can go from point A to point B so quickly when we thought there was some agreement there and that they truly understood. Of course, we start thinking, well, maybe this isn't a real person anymore, or stuff like that. And we've called that the getting the download. But I think what it is more akin to is something like a trance. Like we're all in this hypnotic trance with this reality, and when we see something that kind of jars us, shocks us, wakes us up, smacks us across the face, says, hey, this ain't real, there's just no way, some of us come out of it. Some of us may, and I think there's some assistance there, but you suddenly are, wide-eyed awake, and you're seeing reality for what it is, and then when you try to shake somebody around you and say, hey, look at this, they have a hard time coming out of the dream, and they can go back into the dream very quickly. I call it the mind fog. And I'm not exempt from the mind fog myself. I think the mind fog is always there. The illusion, the trance of this reality is always got its pull. But so maybe that might be a more accurate way to describe what I'm seeing with people who, for a moment, see what reality is, and then they go right back into it. Rather than saying a download, they might be just very drawn back into the trance very quickly, just breaking away from the gravitational pull of the hypnotic state is difficult. But then there's another type of download, and this download is one, and for me it's always been a benevolent download, but it's one of just great understanding, and it's almost like the understanding is just being funneled into your brain, like boom, you can feel it coming into the top of your head, you can sense it, and the clarity of thought, and everything just starts making sense, and you don't have to question it very hard, or whatever you're thinking about, it just comes together and it all clicks and it makes sense. That's the kind of download I like to experience. When I had that God encounter in 2016, where it's very similar to a near-death experience, at least the way people describe them, but the surrounding of the love and the acceptance and the two-way communication that was going, like telepathically going on with another being of great purity, holiness, and love. And not only accompanied with that was just this clarity of thought. Everything made sense. Just like getting a download. Everything just all clicked together. It all made sense. And it lasted for a while. It lasted, it wasn't as intense. Like the most intense that I experienced, it was in that moment. The most intense experience ever was that conversation, God encounter. That was very intense, but it still lingered it still had a certain amount of clarity, and the love and all that stuff kind of lingered for a while. So I walked around with this, and I kept getting like downloads periodically. Like I'd wake up and I just knew a lot of information somehow had been transferred, or a lot of something had been transferred. I don't even know if it's information's the right word. It could be something different than that, but something had been transferred. I understood that at different times. Sometimes I could sense it. Sometimes I could sense it just in conversations when I was talking with others. I could sense that something was feeding me something, knowledge, and I was not even speaking the way I normally would talk. It was, I guess, possession. That's that. There you go. Channeling, whatever you want to call it. Something was moving through me, but it wasn't an evil force. It was a very, very kind force. So to call it evil would be incorrect. But certainly something was moving in and through and flowing through. And that's what I was calling the download. Now, I know that there are definitely evil things that download into people. I during that time particularly, I was seeing very clearly when, I mean, the question of whether or not there's good or evil wasn't a question to me. I clearly saw that which was evil and that which was good. Like there was just a sharpness of understanding, a spiritual download, and I could see when I was speaking to that which was not in line with what I was going through. It was what you would call evil. It was right there. And then, I even so far as to see manifested in front of me a column of smoke with the incredibly thick smell of sulfur. I mean, it was just incredibly intense. I saw it go up into the sky as high as one could see. I have no explanation other than it was some sort of spiritual portal connecting to hell, and I was seeing it that morning. And I was seeing other things too. Just all these weird representations of like the spiritual world coming through and augmenting this physical reality. See, without VR goggles, I'm seeing things that one ought not to be able to see. And with that, the download of information. So there's a tie-in. I noticed too the connection. I could see for the bizarre, wild, spiritual things that are not of this realm. For all the things that I was seeing, I could also see how they were tied to this physical reality. So it completely made sense that there's always a physical explanation. There's always a real world, for the naturalist, the determinist, the atheist, the one who wants to believe nothing is there other than the physical matter right in front of them. I could see how it was so connected and tied together to that spiritual realm. So it would always be, sometimes the manifestation of the spiritual stuff going on was muted in this physical, but it was still there. You could see there was a total connection. One did not happen without the other. It was always connected. I can't say that I see things like that now, but for a while it was so intense, and I was very appreciative of receiving any type of positive download. I was very appreciative of having any sort of spiritual gift. It was like a lot of people, when they have NDEs, they talk about coming back with certain spiritual gifts, like, I don't know, parting gifts, so that they can do life better the next time, or they can cope with what they've seen. And while a lot of people with NDEs come back angry because they don't like being back here, and they come back depressed, and they come back feeling like outcast because people don't want to talk to them about their experience and it was so huge, they also have some sort of gifting that helps them, do this life. And it's like some people see auras and all kinds of things. They have ability to heal others. They themselves sometimes have been cured of something that should have killed them. So there's all kinds of different types of giftings, but for me, that gifting seemed to be just seeing this reality and seeing through the things. Now, that might be not just like, it could be just building on something I already had, because in my youth I was seeing things that I shouldn't have been able to see, with like spiritual, paranormal, ghost-like activities, all catching on fire and not burning, stuff like that. Definitely outside of this realm. I knew when I was about to be kidnapped, only because a voice like right at my shoulder, just as clear as anything, told me to run right now, and that was at that moment I was about to be abducted. Stuff like that occurred. Interaction with ghosts on a nightly basis that, if anybody was interested in documenting and proving, it could have easily been done. It was demonstratable every single night. So there's different types of gifts, and a lot of our spiritual gifts, just like the spiritual world is tethered to this physical realm, and everything that we're seeing in the physical is, there's this manifestation of it on the other side. They're joined at the hip. There's no such thing as just the physical realm happening without it being tied to that spiritual side. So what I'm getting at is, sometimes spiritual gifts are explained away as natural phenomenon. Psychologists love to do that. They love to pick apart someone's spiritual gift as just being a natural skill, just in this physical. And yes, it is tethered. It is connected. You can make connections very many times. So one that I've also seemed to have, even in my youth, is when the intentions of someone were good or evil. If there was a darkness around them, I could see that, like, meaning something's off. Like, I had a radar for people that were maybe dangerous or off, criminally minded. When I was a teenager, I was working for family who, my relative had multiple properties, including a hotel, and he was very low budget and let me as a teenager be in charge while he was off doing other things all day. I was in charge of his summertime opening, all that stuff. And I dealt with a lot of people. For the first time in my life, I was dealing with a variety of people, and I dealt with a variety of people who had a criminal background, because this was on a beach, and pre-season to opening this property, I used to hire labor. And what we had was drifters that live on the beach. They go up and down in the beach. So pre-season, I would give them work for a little bit of money, or some sort of exchange. I'd put them to work, and I didn't realize it was really naive at that time. I mean, I'm talking just a teenager. I'm dealing with people who have got some seedy past, and I would start picking up on that being in them. Like, there's something different about this person. There's something not right. And it's amazing how many times there had to be an intervention just to save me from being hurt, because I was in my naive state. I could sense that there was something wrong, but that still didn't stop me with interacting with them. It still didn't stop me from doing what I thought my job was. But I very easily could have ended up dead with some of the people I was working with and around. But I had the sense, like, I had a buddy who was a cop. His name was the same as mine, Scott. And he'd come down and see me all the time. And sometimes I'd see somebody that just immediately I knew there's just something wrong. So I'd give him a call. Sure enough, he'd come down, question the guy, and the guy's like wanted for some terrible crime somewhere else, and he'd haul him off. But it would just be, and then these people, I would just catch them in the corner of my eye, and they'd be looking at me like staring, like they were, I don't know why, but as soon as I saw that stare, I was like, okay, there's something off about that person. I know there's something wrong there. And then I called my buddy who was the cop and haul him off. we had a lot of police encounters because this place was something of a party area, like a spring break college getaway. So once season kicked in, we had plenty of other um, activities that involved me, and I had to be mature before my age, and kind of kick them out and not permit the drugs, the alcohol, the just disruption, the discourtesy, and waking everybody else that wants to get some sleep. I was always having to boot them guys and gals right out of the hotel. But I had a sense, and you could say, well, you just developed it. Your experiences in your childhood helped you hone, and there's definitely some issues with the family life too that creates a trauma, and all of a sudden you start honing on this ability to sense when somebody's not safe to be around. You start picking up on that, and that would be a natural physical ability that would not necessarily need to be pinned to any kind of spiritual gifting. But it's like I said, it's connected, it's tied, and there's a spiritual gifting that goes right alongside with these things. So when I had that God experience in 2016, I feel like it enhanced it in some of the ways, and then you just keep going, and you appreciate the download whenever it happens. So last week or so, I had this clarity of thought, this huge epiphany, this just understanding, like a multi-dimensional understanding of things, seeing it from multiple perspectives, all at the same time. I had this. It was like, wow, it's been a while since I felt this kind of download. This is pretty cool. It's like seeing a Mandela effect or reality shift. It's another type of thing where you just appreciate getting it when it happens. And I was thinking, it's really hard to put this one into words, because the words, when I tried to say the words of the experience of the download of the understanding, the words do not give it justice. Just don't even come close. It doesn't encapsulate what I just experienced, what I just saw and felt and saw in every different possible perspective all at once. Words do not really explain this, or what that understanding was. If I try to convey what the understanding was, it doesn't quite come across. But I still want to hold on to that moment of understanding and try to put in words. And it was relating to life's meaning, life's purpose, why we're doing this thing in reality. And I know for some people, their purpose is aligned with things that are evil, so their purpose is not going to match up with this. But the original core intent of our purpose, and what we ought to be doing, and why we're here, and what gives this physical reality meaning, that all came together for me so clear. And of course there are those who are rebelling against this purpose. Of course there's a lot of people that are gravitating towards the opposite, the antithesis of this purpose. But it's funny, because I thought, I've heard this stated 1,000 times from people who have NDEs. If they're talking about their NDE and somebody says, okay, so what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose? They all tend to say the same thing. It's like a pat answer. It's just boom. And you hear it over and over and over. So it's like a no duh statement when anybody would say, well, that's duh, of course. But for me, the epiphany was, I saw the meaning of it with such depth and so much more meaning than what just the words themselves mean. But when I look up meaning of life, anybody who's contemplated life's meaning, I guess that's being a philosopher. If you look up the philosophers' meaning of life, you get all kinds of long-winded, just very lengthy explanations. But the funny thing is none of them go that I could find. I mean, you might find the philosopher that says this. I don't know. I looked at many different isms and ologies and all these different long words that I can't even pronounce for all these different philosophies. about the meaning of life without ever even touching on this simplistic statement that almost every NDE person says the meaning of life is. So that's I just found that funny. I mean, isn't it funny that all these people who've gone to heaven and talked to God, they come back saying this is the meaning of life, and I can't find a philosopher saying that. There are philosophers who will say there is a perspective to the meaning of life that has a God-centric focus, like God's, but there's that, but that's the closest I could come to this meaning of life that all these NDEs have. And that meaning that they all want to say is the meaning of life is to love or to learn to love. That is like the meaning. Now my epiphany, my strong moment of understanding, which I could not quite grasp onto words to explain it, but it was that love, even think about it in doses. Think about love as a potion, just a drop of it is so powerful that anything that we do, think, say, anything, any interaction we have in this life, if it's got just even a small measure of love to it, it has meaning. That's where the meaning of life is. Anything that is absent of that love, if it doesn't have any act, and I know this sounds corny as can be, but it was just an understanding that if you have no love in what you're doing, whatever it may be, it could be, doing the dishes. If you have no love while you're doing it, the meaning is gone. The purpose, the meaning, the drive, what gives this life is a love, even in small portions. Any portion of love at all is what brings about the mixture, and it's a mixture of life. It's a mixture of thinking, speaking, and doing. It's the mixture of that with some sort of love. That is all of it. That is the meaning. That is the purpose. The wide-eyed understanding of how powerful that really is and what we're here to do just came together in the moment, and I was like, oh, I can never talk about this to anybody. It sounds so corny. Totally corny, but that was just the understanding that I had. It just really hit me hard. Like that's it. This is what we do. Now, on the flip side, it got me thinking about how many times I see interactions, particularly at the workplace, but just interactions between people where the intent is nothing but to cause harm. Like I'll see people say or do things to one another for no benefit to themselves other than there's some sort of satisfaction in seeing somebody else tormented. And I mean, bringing them anxiety, fear, worry, pain. There's people, and I'm just like that radar where you pick up on evil. My radar, like the vibration of a spider web way out. It's like, boom, that person right there, right now, is feeding on another person, getting some sort of sick pleasure out of causing that person's misery. And there's no benefit to this person other than that. It makes no logical sense why even do it other than the sickly pleasure of causing pain. And I started thinking how people will do that to each other. And then I started thinking about louche energy and evil spirits. Seem like even the Christian notion that these demonic entities will feed, like a parasite, will feed on the misery and the sin and the what they call low vibration, but basically evil, the sin. They feed on that in people. And I don't know if they're operating through people when I see these examples of people, or people themselves just have this sick pleasure in causing misery and pain. But that is very prevalent in this reality. There are a lot of people moving through this reality, and they are taking pleasure in that louche harvest, sickening, pain-causing activity. Just there. So it's the complete opposite of this thing that I just said about the meaning of life being mixing love with everything you do and having a little bit of it, and that's what gives it meaning. There are people that are out there unintentionally maybe, they're getting some sort of thrill out of causing pain to others. So the contrast, the black and the white of this reality is I guess hitting me the most right now. Just how much of it mixes back and forth. But that's about it. I don't know if I've got a Mandela effect. I think my recorder stopped. Let's see if it stopped. No, I think it's still going. All right, I guess the screen just blanked out. So that'll end today's video. Have a good one. God bless.